My name is Jenna. Until 5 years ago, I was a devoted member of the Shadow Circle, a cult that operated under the guise of a spiritual community. I joined them at the vulnerable age of 18, seeking solace and purpose. But what I found was a world of manipulation and fear, a world from which I barely escaped with my life. The Shadow Circle was led by a charismatic man named Xavier. He was an enigmatic figure, claiming to be a messenger from a higher realm. Xavier had a way with words. His speeches were mesmerizing, painting a picture of a utopia that we, his followers, could create on Earth. Life in the Shadow Circle started out seemingly idyllic. We lived in a secluded compound, away from the chaos of the outside world. We grew our food, meditated together, and lived by Xavier's teachings. But over time, things started to change. Xavier's words became more menacing, his rules stricter. He began to control every aspect of our lives, from what we ate to when we slept. One evening during a particularly intense all-cleansing session, Xavier announced that we were under threat. He claimed that dark forces from the outside were plotting against us. In response, he implemented a series of extreme measures. We were forbidden from leaving the compound. Phone calls were monitored, and his loyalty was punished with public humiliation. I'll never forget the first time I saw someone punished. It was a woman named Lily. She was accused of communicating with the outside world. They tied her to a post in the center of the compound. Xavier declared that she was possessed by the darkness and needed to be purified. He splashed her with ice, cold water repeatedly throughout the night. We were forced to watch in silence. Despite the fear, I remained obedient, convinced by Xavier's manipulation that this was all for our salvation. But then, one day, I received a letter. It was from my younger brother, Ben. He had been searching for me and had somehow found a way to get the letter inside the compound. Reading Ben's words, I was overcome with a flood of memories of laughter, love, and freedom. Memories that had been suppressed in the name of spiritual growth. He wrote of our parents, their worry, their heartache. He wrote of the world outside, of the life I could have. And finally, he wrote, "Jenna, you're not lost. You can come back." That letter was a lifeline. The scales fell from my eyes, and I saw the Shadow Circle for what it was. A prison. Xavier, the jailer. But escaping was not going to be easy. I started planning my escape, relying on stealth and patience. I discovered a weak spot in the compound's perimeter fence, hidden by the thick forest. Each night, under the cover of darkness, I would sneak out and work on it, slowly prying the links apart. Then, the night of my escape arrived. The moon was hidden behind a thick blanket of clouds, providing me with the cover I needed. I made it to the fence, my heart pounding like a drum. Just as I was about to make my move, I heard the crunch of leaves behind me. I turned around, frozen in fear. It was Lily. She looked at me, a strange expression on her face. Then, to my surprise, she held up a piece of wire cutters. "I've been working on another part of the fence," she whispered. "We can go together." We worked quickly, cutting through the remaining links. As we crawled through, I felt a sense of exhilaration. We were free. But our joy was short-lived. Suddenly, floodlights lit up the compound. Xavier's voice boomed from the loudspeakers. "Traitors, you cannot escape the shadow." His words were followed by the terrifying sound of dogs barking. We ran. The forest was dark and disorienting, but fear propelled us. We could hear the dogs getting closer. Just when I thought we were done for, we saw a car's headlights in the distance. It was Ben. He ushered us in and drove off just as the dogs reached the edge of the forest. We were safe, but here's the bone-chilling twist. A week after our escape, the police raided the Shadow Circle compound. They found it empty. Xavier and the rest of the cult had vanished. But what they did find was a room filled with personal belongings of previous members. Among them, they found my things, my clothes, my diary, my photos. My diary, my photos. It was then I realized Xavier never intended for us to leave. He was prepared for my disappearance. I was meant to vanish, like so many before me. It sends chills down my spine to think of what might have happened if Lily hadn't found me that night, or if Ben hadn't found me that night, or if Ben hadn't arrived in time. I was supposed to be another nameless, faceless victim of the Shadow Circle, but I lived to tell my story, a chilling reminder of how easy it is to be lured into the shadows, and how hard it can be to escape. My name is Jenna, and I am a survivor. My life took a horrifying turn when I joined the so-called Society of the Hidden. I know it sounds like a B-grade horror movie, but bear with me, this is my tale. I was a wanderer, a lost soul, trying to find my place in the world. One day, as I was aimlessly walking through a bustling city, I found myself in front of a seemingly innocuous building. It was quaint, unassuming. A small sign above the door read, Society of the Hidden. Intrigued, I walked in. The society was led by a man named Ezekiel. He was charismatic, magnetic. Within just a few weeks, I was drawn into his web of promises of enlightenment in a utopian society. I was naive, and I fell for it. Life within the society was strange but not alarming, until one night, during a group meeting, Ezekiel announced the Great Awakening, a supposed day when all society members would ascend to a higher plane of existence. The date was set, 2 months from that day. The room buzzed with excitement and fear. I felt a cold shiver run down my spine. As the day of the Great Awakening neared, things got progressively weirder. Nightly rituals, chants, and bizarre rules. I was uncomfortable but felt trapped. The society had become my life, and then, one late night, I saw something I was not supposed to. I stumbled upon Ezekiel in a private chamber, speaking to someone on a screen. The person on the other side was a woman, her face obscured by shadows. She was giving him instructions, talking about the final phase. I was too far to make out the details, but I knew enough. Something wasn't right. The night before the Great Awakening, I couldn't sleep. I decided to do some snooping around. What I found chilled my blood. A hidden basement filled with crates. And in those crates were guns, ammo, and explosives. My heart pounded in my chest. This wasn't a spiritual awakening. This was a suicide pact. I had to escape, and I had to alert the authorities. I snuck out that night, my heart pounding so loud I was sure it would give me away. Once I was a safe distance away, I dialed 911. The police arrived quickly, but so did Ezekiel. I watched as he was handcuffed and led away. The woman from the screen, revealed to be a notorious arms dealer, was also apprehended. The society members were saved in the nick of time. I thought that was the end of my ordeal. I moved to a different city, started therapy, tried to rebuild my life, but one night I received a call. An unknown number. I answered, my heart pounding. A voice, calm and chilling, said, "The society is everywhere. We are watching." The line went dead. I changed my number, moved again, but the calls didn't stop. They were always different numbers, always the same message. I was living in constant fear. And then one day I received a package. Inside was a small box. And in that box was an earpiece. A note read, "Put it on." I was terrified, but I was also tired of running. I put the earpiece on, and that's when I heard it. The voice of Ezekiel. "I'm sorry for what I did," he said. "But the society was not what you thought. We were not a cult. We were not a cult. We were a resistance. A resistance. Against what? Against her," he said. "The woman you saw on the screen. She wanted to use us for her nefarious deeds, but we stood against her. And now we need your help." So there you have it. My life did a 360. I was a victim, then a survivor, and now a resistance fighter. The society was not a cult. It was a group trying to stop a dangerous arms dealer, and I unknowingly had become a part of their fight. I don't know what tomorrow holds, but I do know this. I will fight. For myself, for the society, and for all those lost souls who are still being manipulated by people like her. The Society of the Hidden is still watching, but this time I am watching back. The hunter has become the hunted, And this time, I am not alone. I was only 17 when my parents first introduced me to the cult of the Eternal Sun. They'd been drawn in by the charismatic leader, a man who called himself Father Solstice. His speeches about unity, love, and spiritual enlightenment were compelling enough to sway even the most skeptical of minds. But beneath the facade of peace and love lay a dark, twisted underbelly. The Sun followers, as we were known, lived in a remote commune in the heart of Colorado. The landscape was beautiful, but our reality was far from it. The days were spent in rigorous labor and the nights in group reflection sessions that felt more like brainwashing than meditation. Father Solstice held a vice-like grip on our lives, controlling our every action with a terrifying intensity. Our days started before dawn, with a ritual to praise the impending sunrise. We'd stand barefoot in the freezing cold, chanting hymns to the eternal sun until our lips were numb. But that wasn't the worst part. Whenever someone questioned Father Solstice or tried to leave, they'd mysteriously disappear. I first noticed this disturbing trend when my friend Miranda vanished. She'd been voicing doubts about the cult, expressing her desire to return to the outside world. A few days later, she was gone. Father Solstice claimed she'd left in the middle of the night, but something about his story didn't add up. My curiosity piqued. I started to dig deeper. I discovered a hidden door in Father Solstice's cabin that led to a chilling sight. A room filled with photographs and personal items belonging to the missing members. I felt a cold shiver run down my spine as I spotted Miranda's necklace among the possessions. I knew then that I had to escape. The next day, under the guise of fetching water, I slipped away from the commune. My heart pounded in my chest like a wild drum as I stumbled through the dense forest, my breaths coming out in short, ragged gasps. I could hear the cult members shouting my name, their voices echoing through the trees. I pushed on, driven by a primal need to survive. After what felt like an eternity, I stumbled upon a main road and flagged down a passing truck. The driver, a kind-hearted man named Hank, took me to the nearest police station. I spilled out my story, showing them the photographs I'd taken of the hidden room. The police launched an investigation, and what they discovered was bone-chilling. The cult of the Eternal Sun was not a simple spiritual group. It was a front for a dangerous cult involved in human trafficking and illegal activities. The missing members had not run away, as I'd initially suspected. They were sold to the highest bidder, their families left clueless and grieving. As for Father Solstice, well, his real name was Robert Sullivan, a felon wanted in several states. When the police raided the commune, they found him in his cabin, about to start another reflection session. He was arrested on the spot. The aftermath was a whirlwind. The cult was disbanded, and its members were freed. Some found it hard to adjust to the real world, their minds too deeply conditioned by the cult's brainwashing. But many, like me, managed to reclaim their lives. The experience left me scarred, but it also made me stronger. I realized the importance of questioning authority and not blindly following what one person says, even if they claim to have all the answers. Today, I share my story to raise awareness about the dangers of cults and the manipulation techniques they use. I want others to learn from my experience and to know that no matter how trapped they feel, there's always a way out. But here's the bone-chilling twist. A few days ago, I received a letter with no return address. Inside was a single photograph. It was a recent picture of me, taken from a distance with a note that read, "The sun never sets." The scars might have healed, but the nightmare, it seems, is far from over. My name's Alex. I'm no writer, just a regular guy. But I've got a story to tell. A story that still makes my skin crawl when I think about it. It started in 2022 when I fell into the clutches of a cult called the Enlightened Path. Sounds pretty harmless, right? That's what I thought too. A bunch of spiritual folks seeking enlightenment. What could possibly go wrong? They welcomed me with open arms, and they seemed so normal. The leader, a a charismatic man named Isaac, promised peace and purpose. I was lost at that time, and it appealed to me. But over time, things became strange. Isaac started preaching about the awakening, a day when we'd ascend to a higher plane of existence. The teachings got more and more bizarre, but by then, I was too deep in. They'd slowly isolated me from my family, my friends. I was brainwashed, unable to see the red flags. One day, Isaac announced a pilgrimage to a remote location in the mountains, the sacred peak. Only there could we reach the awakening, he claimed. Things were about to get ugly. We arrived at an isolated, decrepit cabin. There was an unsettling feeling in the air. The first night there, I saw Isaac and a few others performing a ritual that made my blood run cold. They were chanting in an unknown language, and Isaac, he was talking to someone or something that wasn't there. I knew then I had to escape, but the cabin was miles away from civilization, surrounded by thick woods. My phone was in Isaac's possession, and there was no other means of communication. I was trapped. Then, on the third night, a massive storm hit the area. The power went out, and the cabin was cloaked in darkness. I took my chance. In the chaos, I slipped out the back door. Running through the stormy woods was terrifying, but what scared me even more was the thought of getting caught. I could hear Isaac's voice in the distance, calling out for me, but I kept running, stumbling, falling, but never stopping. I don't know how long I ran, but by the time dawn broke, I was out of the woods, and I saw a distant highway. I flagged down a truck, and the driver, a kind man named Joe, agreed to take me to the nearest town. I was safe, but shaken. I reported everything to the police, and they acted swiftly. They raided the cabin, but they found it empty. No trace of Isaac or any of his followers. It was as if they'd vanished into thin air. You'd think that was the end, right? But the real horror was yet to come. Months later, I received a letter. No return address, just a single line written in a familiar hand. The awakening is near, Alex. It was Isaac's handwriting. I was chilled to the bone. I relocated, changed my identity, but the letters kept coming, each one with the same message. The last one, though, it was different. It had a date. A date that's tomorrow. I don't know what's coming, but I'm scared. I can't shake off the feeling that Isaac is watching me, waiting. And as the date draws closer, I can't help but feel a sense of impending doom. The awakening. Reawakening. What does it really mean? The horror wasn't the cult. It wasn't the brainwashing or the escape. The real horror is not knowing what's coming, the constant fear, the paranoia. It's knowing that they're out there, waiting for the right moment to awaken. And that's my story. It's not over, and I fear it won't end well, but I'm sharing it in the hope that it might help someone else avoid the path I walked. If you ever come across the enlightened path, run. Run as fast as you can.